Welcome to the Flora podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to do a year-end review. I am so excited about this. If you're new to my channel and my podcast, I'm Flora Sage. For over 25 years, I've been helping people like you align into a life or a business that you are wildly obsessed with by helping you clear the 9 types of clutter, keeping you from a life that you love. What are those 9 types of clutter? They are mental, spiritual, emotional, digital, financial, daily, body, process, and environmental clutter. So today's episode may require you to write some stuff down. I would highly encourage it. Now, why are we going to do a year-end review? Well, if you don't know your progress, how are you going to know that you are creating and aligning into a life that you love? If you've read my book, The 1 Degree Shift, or if you've been following me for any period of time, you know that I always preach and teach a few things. The first one is figuring out where you actually are. This is taking those rose-colored glasses off, separating fact from feeling, and really being honest with yourself about where you're at. And then the second step is to figure out where you want to go. What do you want? What is your dream life? And then the third step is to figure out what is the stuff getting in the way, preventing you from having that dream life that you truly want. And then once you figure out what that clutter is, which is why I have this podcast, is to help identify those 9 types of clutter and to help you clear it, then you can start taking those little 1 degree shifts, those little tiny baby steps every single day that will help clear that clutter and get you closer to living your dream life. This year-end review is the perfect opportunity for you to get crystal clear on where you're at right now here at the end of the year. Grab your calendar, grab your journals, whatever it is that you've had this entire year, grab it because you might use it for reference. The first thing we're going to do is write a statement of sorts that describe the year that you've had. So I want you to think about everything, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the achievements that you've had, the plot twists that have come in, the things that you set out to do, and where you feel you are now. And allow yourself to write 1 or 2 sentences describing this past year for you. Hit pause. Once you're finished with that, then come back to this. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to look at each quarter of this year. So first we're going to look January through March, then April through June, then July through September, and then October through December. I want you to look at your calendars, your planners, your journals, and all that jazz, and reflect on the first quarter. Often we forget what we've accomplished as the months go by. So I want you to flip back and look at what did you accomplish in January, February, and March. These could be major accomplishments, or these could be a really small accomplishment that for you literally was life-changing. I talk about this in my book, The 1 Degree Shift, where we look at keystone habits. And this is something in the habit world is a known coined phrase. I'm not quite sure who coined it. I think maybe Charles Duhigg. But a keystone habit is a tiny little action or a tiny little habit that we do that creates a ripple effect in our entire lives. Sometimes we start to implement these tiny keystone habits and it truly changes our lives. And many times the impact of these keystone habits are missed because we're just kind of going through our everyday routines. We're just blowing and going. We're grinding through life. And sometimes we don't take time to reflect and look at what we've accomplished. So with that said, January, February, March, What have you accomplished? Look at your notes, your email, your calendar. What keystone habits or milestones or success metrics, if you will, have you achieved, and what are you proud of? And you can list out all of your achievements. You can list out all of the goals that you set out, that you accomplished, any wins that you had, and also right next to that, what the result of that has been. I mean, if you decluttered your basement and you're like, oh my God, I decluttered my basement in January and I'm so proud of myself and I kept it decluttered. You can also ask yourself, wait, what result has that made in my life? What impact has that made? And you're going to start to recognize that the impact of one thing can literally create that ripple effect in the rest of your life. So hit pause, do January through March, and then come back. All right, so now we are in April, May, and June. What accomplishments, what goals, what things did you set out for yourself that you actually accomplished and you finished? You see the results, you see the impact on your life, you recognize that you did something. Maybe you even took that quarter off of hustling and grinding. I know many of us in this community are entrepreneurs, and it seems like that we've constantly got to be producing or constantly have to be doing all the things. And sometimes it's beneficial to just pause, take a break, regroup, and then come back in the next quarter or the next month refreshed. So recognize your vacations, recognize the time that you've taken off as well, especially if you've seen a positive impact in your life because of it. Hit pause, come back when you are done with April, May, and June. All right, so now we are in July, August, and September. Again, look at your calendars, look at your planners. What goals did you accomplish? What did you achieve? What are the results of those things that you achieved? And what is the impact that it's created in your life? Really allow yourself to be in this space of reflection of how impactful you completing things and clearing the clutter and decluttering those things that have kind of bogged you down. Notice what the impact has been in your life. Hit pause and come back when you are finished with July, August, and September. Okay, now we are in October, November, and December. This is the last hurrah for the year. Some people call it the home stretch for the year. So I want you to, again, look at your calendar, look at your planner. What accomplishments have you done? What goals did you set out? And what are the results of achieving those goals? What's been the biggest impact that these have created in your life? Hit pause and then come back. All right, now that we've looked at all of the accomplishments and things that we've achieved and the results and the impact of the things that you've achieved, I want you to think about what I like to call those plot twists that you had this year. And a plot twist, again, is something that throws you off your game. It could be, some people call this a cosmic 2x4. Some people call this a curveball. I want you to think about any of these plot twists that happened this year. And I want you to write down each plot twist that happened. Once you write out all of these plot twists, ask yourself how you showed up for yourself. Did you support yourself? By taking self-care, by doing the things that you needed to do? Did you ask for support? Could this plot twist have been avoided by you taking action before the plot twist happened? And what is the biggest lesson learned from each of these plot twists? Pause this and then come back. The next thing I want you to list out for these plot twists is what types of clutter got in the way and derailed my efforts this year? I'm going to list out the 9 types of clutter for you to write them down. The first type of clutter is mental clutter. The next type is spiritual clutter. The next type is emotional clutter. The next is digital clutter. The next one is financial clutter. The next one is daily clutter. The next is body clutter. The next one is process clutter. And lastly, environmental clutter. And really ask yourself, what of these 9 types of clutter really got in the way of my progress this year, of my joy, of my happiness, of me seeing results and accomplishing the things that I wanted to. And like I said, you can rank them if you want to, 0 to 10, 0 being they didn't bother you at all, they didn't get in the way. 10, it was a major hurdle, a major block that got in the way for me accomplishing these things. And again, this is one of the things that when people start clearing these types of clutter, you start making rapid progress in your life because it's finally clear. Like if financial clutter has been an issue and all of a sudden you clean up your financial stuff, it's no longer an issue. Now you can do whatever you want because there's no financial clutter there. All right, now that you're done with looking at your plot twists, the next thing is we're going to look at your core foundation. And these are the things that you can start to implement so that you can better handle plot twists in the future. This could be nervous system regulation. It could be to start to implement a keystone habit. If you don't know what that is, check out my book or any other book on habits. It could be starting an exercise routine. It could be eating healthier. It could be cutting up your credit cards and starting to invest. It could be to change where your investments are so that you get a bigger return on your investments and more dividends. It could be to go to a marriage therapist or counselor. It could be to learn better communication. It could be to finally start that business that you wanted to start. It could be to retire, whatever it is. But give yourself permission to make note of and write down those things that you feel would have better equipped you to handle these plot twists in life. And the reason why that we do this is because when you know better, you do better. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And after a plot twist happens, after a challenge happens, and we see shit hit the fan and we navigate as best we can with the information that we have, after, a month or 2 or even a year out of it, then we're like, oh yeah, okay, so knowing what I know now, I would have done XYZ differently. And that's what this section of this year-end review is for, is let's look at that hindsight. Let's look at the clarity that you now have, now that you've been through that plot twist in your life, and set yourself up for success if and when that plot twist might happen again. Hit pause and come back when you're finished. All right, this next section is one of my favorites, especially if you are a journaler or someone who likes to kind of dig into all things personal development and all things personal growth. I want you to come up with some questions that will allow you to reflect even more on how you showed up for yourself this past year and how you might be able to show up more intentionally this next year. A couple of the questions that you could ask yourself are, did I allow myself to show up as if I've already accomplished my goals? Now, this is one of Neville Goddard's teachings. I've preached and teached about him for years, and one of his teachings is assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And when you show up already feeling like, yes, I make $1 million in my business, or I just got a $20,000 bonus at work because of my fabulous performance, or I've already lost that 20 pounds, or I've already paid off all of my debt, or I've already decluttered my entire house and I have no decluttering left to do. How would you feel when you wake up and that's done? Everything that you want is done. Now what? How would you wake up? How would you show up to the world? How would you show up to your relationships? What would you say? What would you do? What would you eat? like literally all the things. Now that you've accomplished your goals, how would you show up to the world? So that's one of the questions that you can ask yourself. Another question that you can ask yourself was I intentional with my time, attention, and energy? And if not, what could I do to shift that next year? Another question you can ask yourself is, did I avoid my clutter for short-term comfort? Did I avoid my clutter for short-term comfort? What does this mean? This means, let's just say you have some body clutter and you know that you want to start working out for health, not necessarily for weight loss, but just for health. And you say, oh, I'm not going to work out today because I'm just tired or whatever. Or maybe you have some energy, but you're like, it's just really cold outside. I'm not going to do it today. So that's avoiding clearing some body clutter for temporary comfort of sitting on the couch and watching Netflix. The long-term ramifications for that can be major. Another question is, did I set goals for myself and check in with them regularly? Another question is, did I enlist someone to help me be accountable for the goals that I set out for myself? And the last example question that I'm going to share with you is, who can I bring into my realm this next year to help me achieve the goals that I set out to go? Who can I bring into my inner circle that will ensure that I continue to show up day in and day out, so that I know by this time next year, I will have achieved my goals? So those are some example questions for you. Go ahead and hit pause and then come back when you're finished. All right, the purpose of this podcast episode. I know most podcast people are driving to and from places and they're walking their dog and doing dishes and whatever. And yes, this podcast is meant for you to sit down and do a workshop. Y'all know me, you know that I'm about taking action. I'm about the nitty-gritty, about doing the work. And this whole podcast, I give you exercises and things to ponder and homework and all the things. And because action is where results come from. Action is where results come from. So if you are ready to take action this next year, I do have several spots available. If you know you're ready, click the link in the show notes, apply, let's talk on the phone. I am so excited for this next group of people that are getting ready to come in. It's incredible. If you're not ready, if you know that you're not ready to play full out, then you are not going to be accepted. That's just it. I only work with people who are ready to say, hell yeah, let's do this. I am 100% in. And come hell or high water, I am going to make this next year my best year yet. Woo! So good. So good. All right. Our next week's podcast is creating your yearly vision and your yearly plan. Oh my gosh, I am so freaking excited. That is going to be out on January 3rd. So I hope you had a fabulous winter holiday, whichever one that you celebrate. And Happy New Year, and I will see you back here next week. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.